and I really appreciate the chance to share and to have people praying, because I think that will be great at the moment. So I think it was 2 months ago when I last spoke in this call, and a lot has changed and happened since then. I think at that point we thought it might not be such a long-lasting conflict as it has proved to be, as Lucy mentioned. And we've seen on the news and as Lucy shared the statistics as well, the huge impact of it, and just the kind of ongoing instability where people are trying to come back to places, but then they become unsafe again. And it's just really a really difficult situation. As Lucy mentioned, we're partnering with an organisation called Innovista. You might have heard of them. They're also based in Oxford. And they've been already responding through their kind of network of church and Christian leaders in Moldova and in Ukraine, giving food, assistance, whatever's needed through their local partners. But they wanted to think through how they can really provide more in-depth support to be able to help people to deal with the trauma that they're facing after what they've been through, and ongoingly as they go through it. So they approached us to support them in that, and that was great for us because they have a really similar heart to Viva. Although they don't focus on children, they don't start networks, they do really have a heart to come alongside what the local church is doing in difficult places and really support the people who are already working there, which is very similar to us. And as Lucy said, I visited Moldova a week or two ago, and it was great to be able to listen to the team that's there, find out more about the situation and what they're doing. I didn't know that much about Moldova before. They're a really small country and one of the poorest in Europe, but as they have a border with Ukraine, they've also been one of the countries that has received a big number of refugees, and with little resources really to support them. So initially, as people came, a lot of the support was from the churches and local community, because it took a while for the state to kind of step in and also help. And so now, while the state does offer some support, churches are often the people who are coming alongside, providing extra things that people need and really trying to build relationships with people too. And I got to visit a few different centres and places where refugees are. And yeah, some of them were quite almost in the middle of nowhere feeling. So they might be like existing kind of some kind of centre where maybe for older people or for children or something like that, that's been a bit repurposed to also house a group of refugees. And so the people who run that are just told that they need to give that space for people. And so they can be quite, I mean, a lot of people I met had come from quite a big city, but were now kind of somewhere in a village or the middle of nowhere. So it was a really big kind of difference for them. And it felt like, as we've seen in lots of places, when the church is there, they can really make a difference by providing that extra level of friendship and just getting to know people and helping them to feel welcome. So that's what I was able to see. And especially, I think there was a big difference too between where people are living in a centre like that and where they've been able to settle more within a community. When we went to a place like that, there was just such a difference in how people were doing. They were much more kind of, although they were still struggling and wanting to get home as quickly as they could, there was a lot more kind of lightness in their mood and a lot more sense of community, because the church there had really been able to build relationships with them in community, not just kind of in a centre. And it felt like they were getting a bit more normal everyday life as far as they could. Yeah, and it was great to talk to children as well. We had one group that was just with children, where they were talking about the place where they were and what they liked about it and what they didn't like and how things were. And one of the big issues for them is learning, actually, because they're mostly still learning online from their school in Ukraine, which is great. But that's really difficult to really keep up with at the moment. Being so distant from it and not always having access to phones and everything. And then one of the kids was just like, we had years of that with COVID and now we've got war and we're just like, you know, it's all really rubbish. So it felt like there were a lot of needs for children as well, and that is an important area to focus on. There are a lot of people that seem to be working with adults, doing kind of trying to get psychology and trauma response kind of stuff, but not always thinking so much about the children. So it felt like that would be quite a gap. And also, yeah, lots of people in the community and Christians wanting to respond, but not knowing exactly how to do that and how to support people in those deeper situations they're going through, which is difficult to see, but was also in some ways encouraging, because we've been looking at redeveloping our COVID phone mentoring materials for this context and wanted to see if that really would be useful and people would want to use it. And it really felt like from the visit that would be something that would be really relevant. And we also met with a group of Christian organizations and psychologists and people who are wanting to respond to trauma, and we were able to present the program, the mentoring program, and there was a lot of interest in it and people were really wanting to be able to start using it. And at the same time, someone from Innovista also went to visit Ukraine, and went around lots of the different partners there, and again there was a lot of need for that kind of material there too. So we have been redeveloping that program, trying to adapt it so it can be relevant for all different kinds of settings, whether you're in a conflict zone or kind of on the move somewhere, or if you're settled in a different place. So it's been interesting working out how that can be possible. There's been some new parenting tips, which is what the original mentoring program was based on, that have been adapted for wartime context. So we've been using those and just slightly redeveloped the content of the sessions to make it relevant. So it still contains some of the same things, like how to deal with your mental health, how to stay safe and avoid violence at home, and the helping your child with learning, which I wasn't sure if it was as relevant now, but it seems like it still really is for people. But there's also been some extra content added around preventing child protection risks like trafficking, and how you can, as a parent, just recognize where you're at with what you've been through before you start talking to your children about it. So at the moment, we've got the sessions basically finished, trying to finalize those with the right words, trying to put together the other supporting resources that go along with that, like the guide for mentors, the guide for how to set that up. Also, with the monitoring this year, we are having hopefully an app which people can use to record their feedback and what they're learning through the program, so that we can see that in real time and see the impact and what we might need to change. Yeah, so I'll be really appreciating your prayers in that, because we're really hoping this week is the week we could get a lot of those materials to the translators who'll be translating into Ukrainian and Russian for us, so that those materials can be used. So yeah, we'd really appreciate your prayers for that, for finalizing those materials this week, and just that for anyone who it will be useful for, they'll be able to access it, basically. Also pray for the churches in Moldova and Ukraine who are supporting people affected by conflict, that they'd be encouraged and strengthened, and just for the situation in general, for peace, for people to be able to go back home, which is what everyone seemed to want the most, and for children to be supported and safe and able to learn, and make new friends. So yeah, sorry, that was a long update, but really appreciate your prayers.